Always learning new things. I didn't know I did French poetry, and now I do. That's really amazing. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to share a few now, and then we'll take a little break just to welcome a special guest, and then come back and share a few more of our words as the Poetry Slam team. So I don't know what to say. I want to start by sharing one about my voice. I think that this has been a art form that has allowed me to really embrace my voice. I used to be very soft-spoken, so much so that conversations were frustrating because people were constantly like, "What? What? What? Speak up!" And kind of it had that feeling that kind of feeds back to you, where you feel like you have nothing valuable to say because the people can't hear you say it, and so they don't have any response to it, and realize that I was like, oh, I'm creating that myself. That's a thing, right? And I find it really interesting that as a group, all five of us are very soft-spoken people, soft-spoken poets. Especially when you get out onto the national stages or even big city communities with poetry. It's all like big and loud, and there's emotion and anger and yelling, and they do these slam pieces that are basically constructed around volume and intensity, and we're not really like that. And so we're going to try to embrace something a little bit different. And I wrote this previously, but I'm just going to read it now as sort of like an ode to our uniqueness. My voice. My voice, my voice, my voice, my voice. I say it over until it becomes awkward on my tongue. I trip over teeth, stumble on speech, catch syllables in my lungs. My voice, soft-spoken. And you might not have reason to listen without this stage that justifies my presence, my stance, my voice. I speak justice, and in real life I still might be quiet, but here I find my voice and I find you listen. And it doesn't strike the same fear it once would because the stage justifies, mic amplifies, lights illuminate. And I can cast light into the shadowed spaces the community doesn't want to see, and at least for 3 minutes you will look there with me and listen to the soft-spoken. Thanks. So I wrote that one as a really quick prompt at a festival that I participated in recently, the Saskatoon Poetic Arts Festival. And that was a really wonderful experience because instead of being based upon competition like most poetic festivals are, this one was surrounded and built around collaboration. And so I got to work with the team. There was 9 other poets, so 10 of us in total, and we created art together and wrote a bunch of new pieces all at the same time. So one of these, I want to share just another one just because I think that it's delightful. We were supposed to write something very concrete about what we have witnessed in the world, and then something very abstract about what we have wondered. And then we actually mashed them together and made them one really delightful poem, because somehow that actually works, and you take a line and then fit it, and then line, and then fit it in line, and we were all like, how does that make sense? It makes no sense that works like that. But I just want to read you the abstract part. So this is a poem about wonder. I have often wondered about all of the parts of me. Not fingers or toes, not thoughts or words, but the cell structures and microorganisms that make up my body. I wonder about the communities inside of me, balanced ecosystems of flora and fauna that live, breathe, grow, and die all inside this skin. Not solid, but comprised of empty space, electrical conductivity, cells popping in and out of existence millions of times each microsecond, and I wonder about that particle of oxygen, if you felt it when it once inhabited you, if it took a part of you with it, a part that now lives within me, a part that is then a part of that tree, constantly cycling, popping in and out of existence. That was also a really wonderful experience, Spaff, because when I first started writing poetry, it was all kind of from a space of, well, just to give it a word, trauma. You know, there was things in my life that I needed to reconcile, and I used words as a way of doing it, a way of telling my story, of forming my own, you know, concrete reality around what I was experiencing, and then also sharing that with others in the hopes that it would help them if they're handling kind of the same thing as well. And much like Kai said, I realized that there was a period of time where I wrote a bunch of rage poetry, and then I just felt angry all the time, and I didn't want to come up on stage and, you know, be the angry one. And so I kind of put that aside for a little while, didn't write anything for about 4 months, and then came back to it like, I'm going to write about something different, and have just sort of been trying to reformulate my voice and my opinions and the way that I'm going to express it ever since. So it's been a bit of a challenge, but a really fun challenge. And this is one that kind of came out of that, which I might also say was from a traumatic experience, but certainly experiencing it in a different way. They banned my wrist at the label unassigned, and I felt like a canary in a coal mine. These deep holes dug by the powers that be, they are waiting for the masses to sicken before they run, only to save themselves. And yet, I'm here, caged, chirping, help me, and a benevolent doctor extends his hands with a mitt full of pills and says, take these, and if you're not feeling better, call my receptionist in 7 days. And I'm not. So I do, and they say, you may make an appointment in 14 days. And so I wait. And the doctor shakes his head at my symptoms and refers me to a specialist, and I wait 4 weeks to see them, 8 more weeks to hear from them, and a lifetime for a diagnosis. And I'm still waiting. And meanwhile, my body lacerates skin with knife cuts, makes pincushions of nerve clusters, charges veins with electricity, and I am told that I look well today, as if illness needs to be seen to be taken seriously, as if this positivity subverts my prognosis and renders care unnecessary. And I'm caught between displaying this pain and putting on a polite face, but the smile comes easiest because, as birds, we are taught that our lives are meant to be uncomfortable, our bodies made for pain. Our suffering just the consequence of the gilded cage, not the air or the food or the water, not the imbalance of delicate ecosystems that the doctors know nothing about, despite the fact that my body has been on earth as long as theirs has. They give me blanket comfort diagnosis. Seat me in a private room beside a cupboard posted with a sign that says, solutions are in here. As if solutions can be packaged into bottles, spread about like creams. And inside my body is still screaming, care for me. Each new symptom just another level of upping the ante. Are you listening yet? And this 30 seconds is not enough time to express, so I write a list and it takes a whole page. Are you listening yet? And my deterioration is indication of greater trouble coming. And I am not the only bird lying on the floor of the cage, chirping with a last gasping breath. Are you listening yet? Are you listening? Are you? Perhaps I'll read just one more to bring you up and out of that, something a little bit more delightful, and then we will welcome our very special guest. So this one is actually another one that came from a prompt. One of the things I did to get myself out of that slump of not writing at all was to participate in National Poetry Writing Month. So this was one prompt every day for 30 days. And this one in particular, if I can find it, is write something from the perspective of the past, telling the future not to repeat its mistakes. So, sorry about this. This is why I dislike having poetry on my phone. I find that I always forget what I name it, and then can't find it at all. It's not that one, not that one. Oh, that's a new one. I forgot about that one. Okay, I'll just read this one instead. I foster cats for Street Cat Rescue, and we just recently got some new ones, and so we have a whole horde of kittens at home. There's 3 kittens and their mom, all brand new to us, and we were given the letter R and asked to name these cats, and so we decided to go with a music theme, naturally being the musician and just a lover of all things sound. And then we were talking about in the scat community, writing poetry to advertise these cats, and so I thought I'd try my hand at it. So this is what I came up with. These kittens are a symphony. Rhyme, the orchestrator, she likes to climb to high places and play from her view of the top. Remix, the conductor, she plays with the baton, not the fetter, guiding it for her brother to play along. Rap, the doer, the I'm gonna chase this until it stops, the fight hard, play hard, kinda pouncy, the I will until I can't kind of symphony. A rumbly, tumbly, discordant sort of symphony in which rhyme has already fallen off the bed 3 times and doesn't seem to care, and remix has wandered off to chase the puffball and growl in low tones, and rap has yet to stop running on his paws, leaping, lunging, luring, a symphony that never ceases. Until food time is over, and an empty suitcase seems the perfect place to curl up with mom, rosin, and settle into a rumbling purr of sleep and warm fur. Guess what? Here comes Victoria. Isn't this a wonderful umbrella? It's just such a great color. And it's the same color as a lot of things around here. You are at the Little Manitou Art Gallery, in case you weren't aware. Sarah and Clayton are really fantastic people and awful generous, given by the fact that they gave me this umbrella when they saw that I was shielding my face from the sun. So lots of gratitude to that. How's everybody feeling? Are you like leaning more towards it's time for me to get a drink and a burger, let's take 5 minutes, or leaning towards I am super content here and I just want to keep going? So let's have a hands up for drinks and burgers. No? Everybody is content? Let's see that. Content? Yeah? Get some blood flowing. Awesome. Thank you. That's good to know. Oh, weird. Did that just make feedback, or is that just me hearing that? I'm going to do some more poetry. I just want to start with one that I truly appreciate. Thank you. It's another one that I wrote in the stream of like, how do I get away from writing poetry about trauma? And it was one that was inspired actually by the Indigenous Poets Society. They're doing some really great work, kind of like Tip style, but in their own unique way because they're own unique people, spreading the word of Indigenous youth and adults as well. Kind of same thing that we do, but I think that I've learned more by going to Indigenous Poets Society events and by being a teammate with several Indigenous poets last year than I did in university. It's really phenomenal to hear them stand up and talk about the real effects of colonialism, just from person to person. Like, this is me, and this is how it's affected me, and I'm a person standing here beside you. It makes it all very real and very tangible. And there was a time when I was sitting there thinking, how can I possibly ever come to understand colonialism? Like, from my perspective, how can I personally relate with what's been lost or what's been harmed in that? And so I started to think about my own history and how I really feel like I have lost a lot of connection to my ancestral youth, and realized, like, looking back, that hey, actually my great-grandparents were pretty oppressed too. and really not to take that story from them by any means, because their story's not mine, nor vice versa. But I, wrote this out of it, just a way of tuning into that ancestral loss that I also experience. So, bound and binding, binding bound. What was lost shall now be found. Magic circle, round and round, bound and binding, binding bound. So mote it be. And this was the first magic spell ever taught to me. And sure enough, as I wandered through rooms reciting on repeat, I found a belief in something beyond me. Mother, do you believe in magic? I asked, and she said, no. She said, magic spells are things for dreams and fairy tales. She said, there is a difference between fantasy and reality. And this confused me, because up until then, my waking awareness and dreams were the same thing. Those subconscious symbols of dream times were forms of an ancient language that I was just beginning to learn how to speak. And it turns out that I asked the wrong half of my ancestry. That if I had asked the pixies and the fae in the forest, they would have told me what magic was. They would have told me that intention is the basis of creation and that I have that power inside of me. And there was a time when the air breathed intuition, and magic circled round our feet as medicine, and we realized that this earth was a gift that we could utilize. And when I was young, I played with the mushrooms, moss, and leaves, and they showed me where to find magic in the mundane. And they showed me how to create from decay. I made familiar with the insects and the worms, and through them I learned to never underestimate the importance of anything. And I witnessed as the stars emerged, as the sky turned to night. And they taught me how to cast light into the world with my candles and the moon. And I listened to the owls and the deer, and I could hear them say that our essence is the same, different only in form. Bound and binding, binding bound, what was lost when we lost the wisdom from witchcraft, when it became synonymous with crone. In our relationship to the earth, we lost the innocence of maiden, the nurturance of mother. But magic taught me that the law of nature is three. Whatever sent out is returned to thee, and through that learned to live compassionately. And since we have wandered far from this, we have muddied our souls as above, so below, our feet softened on boot bottoms as we trampled what we used to know. And since it has taken children to remind us how to believe in dreams and fairy tales, and I believe that someday they will. But until then, I'll be out in the forest, reciting, bound and binding, binding bound. What was lost shall now be found. Magic circle, round and round, bound and binding, binding bound. Thank you. I think I'm just going to flip to the next one that's in front of me in the book, which is another one that I've written quite recently. I actually can see looking back that this page was a poem that I wrote a year and a half ago, and this page was a poem that I wrote recently. So it just really it demonstrates that gap for me. And so if you are an artist and in a moment of stagnancy, that's okay, let it be, you'll come out the other side. This one kind of surprised me when I first thought of the first few lines. I didn't know what the poem was about. It wasn't until I got to the end that I was like, oh, all right. I have never liked to read mystery novels. I am displeased when I discover the culprit too early, and also discontented when I cannot figure it out. I feel like the mystery is too close to me, as though everyone I know and love is a source of mistrust, or as if I will be betrayed by the evidence weighed against me. And I have oft been the mystery, the proviser of intrigue, the keeper of secrets, the one you have not yet had the chance to know, because I clutch my clues close to my chest, lest you discover the person that I have been. Because I have been put on trial before, I've had my moments of discovery turned against me like knife points. I've had my innocence stripped from my bones, my raw insides exposed and shown to the jury. Each point made as if to say that those worst parts of me were the whole of me, as if I were worthy of judgment. And you might believe it, because you don't know what to think or what to say. You have never heard me say anything, and so when I speak, the whole world goes silent, and my voice retreats back inside of me lest I give myself away, because at least, as a mystery, I am an interesting read. And I'm pretty sure that that's the only reason that you like me, because a game is only fun to play when it contains an element of difficulty, and it's special. When you get to level on up through my chapters, when you get to witness the cobwebs I leave tangled on the rafters of my mind and realize that they're actually bats hung up in tree branches that only come out at night. And maybe you'll run then, afraid of the darkness. Or maybe take me up like a challenge, and that's why sometimes it's best to stay a mystery. Best to come alive only at night when I won't be altered by the light. When my identity won't be torn from me, stripped into sinew, packaged into something new, something it never was, something it's not allowed to be. And maybe it's true that I'm needlessly afraid of persecution, that I need not remain wrought with imaginary weaponry, that the clues may not line up like iron bars before me, and that finding me guilty won't be the end of this mystery. I'm going to flip back to phone poems. It's funny because I was saying that I don't like it on the phone because I forget what they're called, or they get moved around in line and I never know where to find anything. This one, the reason I was having troubles finding it is because the way that it was labeled was UWE ... OUTHIN ... I'm like, what is that? You were never one to think of you, or what other people thought of you, is what the poem is called. You were never one to care what other people thought of you. So that's what this one is. And this is the one that I told you about before the break that had that cue, so I just didn't want to leave you hanging on that. I just wanted to fill you all in on this one. You were never one to care what other people thought of you. You were all mixed paint on hair tips, streaking color through grass, walking home on your hands, kind of one and only. You were that summer dress, climbing trees, kind of free. You were that bumblebee sting, butterfly chasing, kind of wild, whatever it was, just right. But sometime you grew, and then you began to choose your music by others' ears, your clothing by others' eyes. You defined relationships by glances, all of it a game of chance. Remember, the uncertainty of defining your morality by their compass. Living on the tip of the needle, orienting lines swayed by the magnetism of times, bearing always a little off-center. And remember, why you never found where you were trying to go. That compass never pointing north. The world always appearing around you upside down. You forgot to put your hair to the ground. Forgot to climb the tree to see the whole picture. Remember how you got lost without finger paint markings on tree bark left by your own hands, guiding you home to a center that you know. And before you make that mistake again, please remember to chase your own butterflies and wear your own dresses and stop giving care to any thoughts about you but your own. And I'll share just one more with you folks before I invite up some more of my teammates to grace the stage once more. Danica, that's you. Get ready. Next in queue. This one I wrote, I took an undergraduate in psychology, and those interactions between the physical body and the psychological body I find really fascinating. And so I studied a lot of physiological psychology or neuropsychology. And this was one that I just wanted to bring it in a very comprehensive way. And I feel really re-inspired by it now, as I get in preparation to go to grad school probably next year, maybe the year after. We'll see the way the wind flows. But this is one that just touches that part of my heart. If I had devil's horns, where on my head would they grow? Perhaps positioned equidistantly to the left and the right top edges of my occipital lobe, twisting the reality I see. Or maybe, hidden in behind me, projections of my hindbrain expressing my animalistic tendencies. Repeat motor responses to threats perceived and evil created by experiences imposed on me. Each trigger an atrophy of my capacity to behave rationally, and as the gray matter in my frontal cortex dissolves, I lose my ability to resolve this lingering anxiety. And when I was young, I remember being told that I had a temper, as if it was cute for such a small girl to hold such big anger, as if it were irrational of me to react so intensely to the injustices I perceived. But my hippocampus is shrinking, my amygdala alarming on repeat, and these acquired fear responses are overtaking my memory, my autobiography shifting to the valence of threat. I can no longer detect real or differentiate imagination because the trauma stored in my central nervous system is forcing its way through to the periphery. And these horns invading my limbic system awaken these responses. Threat! When I wake up in the morning, threat! And just try to get ready. Fight! To live a normal day. Freeze! Attuned to perceive this trauma is real, and you wonder why I struggle to feel into this education or why they don't care for this workplace. We're all just trying to make it by with devil's horns in our minds. And this is not a psychiatric diagnosis that you would recognize. But you might hear them when they say that the problem is addiction, aggression, criminal tendencies, or depression. And you might never think to question my neuronal integrity when you judge me. Thank you, thank you. Without further ado, let's put our hands together one more time to invite Danica up to the stage. Open stage, community mic part of the evening. So for this, it's literally open to you. So I have a list of a couple of names. I don't know if you would like to put your name on the list and come up and share a poem or a story or a song or inspiring anecdote, political opinion. I don't know, anything. You could come up and share anything. First, I would like to start by thanking our sponsor, the Prairie Central District Sports, Culture, and Recreation. There is their poster up there. They spend the Sask Lottery's money, and they gave some of it to us so that we could come here and do this today. So, let's just get right into it.